Well, hello there, and welcome to this week's broadcast. I am Alma Follett, a surface pattern designer, online educator, and creative entrepreneur. And I hope you've been enjoying these quick tips videos about how to set yourself up for success for your first or your next craft fair. And this week's quick tips video is all about planning your sales. Now, I spent 35 years in retail, and so I would very much recommend that you do some planning around managing your expectations for what you're going to sell, but also having kind of a game plan about how much you think you're going to be able to sell at whatever craft fair you picked, which you did as your homework assignment several weeks ago. So depending on the craft fair that you picked, it might be happening over several days. So my first tip for you is you're going to want to track your sales and actually build a little preliminary sort of guesstimate of what you think your sales are going to be for however number of days the craft fair is happening. So if it's a 2-day fair, you're going to want to have some estimates for what you're going to make on day 1 versus what you're going to make on day 2. And frankly, I might break that down by hour as well. Now, that might be a little bit overkill for you the first time out, but I like to think about if the craft fair is 4 hours on one day and 4 hours on the next day, I like to think a little bit about when am I going to make the most sales? When is it going to be the busiest? Is it going to be a little bit slow in the first hour? Then sales are going to pick up in sort of hour 2 and 3, and then they're going to dip down a little bit more in the last hour of that particular day. So the key point here in terms of tip number 1 is open up a Google sheet or an Excel spreadsheet or just write it down in your notebook. How many hours are you going to be selling each day? Because that's going to help you with tip number 2, which is you want to list all the products you're going to be selling. And on that list, you're going to want to have captured how much did it cost for you to make that product? And then what are you going to price it at? And there's a sort of an industry standard, very, very rough industry standard, especially in the clothing industry, which is where I spent 35 years, is that your wholesale price, you double to sell to the public. So if it cost you $10 to make something, you sell it for $20. Or there's actually an expression called Keystone plus 2, which is actually you double it and then you add $2. Now, that does not always work. So, for example, we've talked a little bit about purchasing, for example, some of your inventory on a print-on-demand site when they are on sale. So you might be buying something that is at a 30% discount, and then you're going to sell it at full price. So you're obviously not doubling the price. So this could be an entire course in and of itself around pricing. The tip for you is to get yourself organized so that you have a piece of paper that says, here are the 5 products I'm carrying. Here's what they cost me to acquire and how much inventory I bought. So I got 5 mugs, for example, and then here's what I'm going to price them at. And the reason this is important is because when we start getting into supplies and prep work and merchandising your table, you're obviously going to need to keep track of what everything costs. And don't worry, I'm going to share resources with you about how to then track what you sell. And you're going to want to then see that mix afterwards when you do kind of your post-craft review. So that's tip number 2. And then tip number 3 is remember again that you want to have some very loose totals. And so I will leave a very simple spreadsheet that you can use below this video that kind of walks you through these 3 tips. The first tip is how many days is the craft fair and how many hours are there so that you can track your sales across days and hours. Tip number 2 was you got to make sure you have listed your products, you know how much they cost you to acquire and what you're going to price them at so that you know what your margin is. And tip number 3 is to then take a look at how you think those products will sell each day. And a lot of this is guesswork. It's total guesswork. However, it's very helpful to get you into the mindset of how much you would like to be selling during a particular time frame so that you can start to think about how you might both be engaging with customers, how you might be attracting them to your table if you're either ahead or behind what your goal was. And it also just puts you into this sort of financial mindset where you're going there to actually sell some of your beautiful products and put them into the hands of customers for the holiday season, which is to bring joy to them in their new environment. I always like to say in closing that I am Amla Follett, and it's never too late to create. And I'll see you next week when we talk a little bit about how to market your shop and make sure people know to come and visit and to come to purchase something from your table. All right? I will see you then. Bye for now.